Hello and welcome to K2AV's Make Pretend AV Setup Show. My name is Jasky, and if you haven't watched any episodes previously, what we do here is we have a theoretical client with a budget and some requirements, and we design an audiovisual solution to best meet their needs. Today we have a special episode. We have a theoretical client called Gurkaran who is going to be having a consultation with our General Manager Lloyd. And Gurkaran has an engineering consultancy business, and he wants to know what software is best for his video conferencing needs. This one will be a valuable one for a lot of small businesses. So let's jump into this episode and hope you enjoy this one.
Hi Gurkaran, thanks for coming in.
Thanks for having me, Lloyd. What I would like your help with is trying to get some sort of assistance to make a decision as to what might be the best video conferencing software for our needs.
Okay, what are you currently using? Are you using any video conferencing softwares at the moment?
I think personally everyone's using Zoom. I think it depends on who sends the invitation. If they sometimes send a Microsoft Teams invitation, then they're using Teams. So it really depends on who they're communicating with as to what platform they're using for the conferencing.
Okay, so to be honest, it's more of a question of preference and what your staff are actually going to use. I find in my experience that a lot of organizations use Teams for internal communication. So they'll do, internal video conferencing or chat, etc. And then whenever they wanted to actually discuss with someone externally, everyone will gravitate towards Zoom. I really think that's due to the COVID pandemic. Everyone is used to using Zoom in their personal lives, so they're always going to gravitate towards it. I mean, you even hear the conversation, jump on a Zoom. No one says jump on a Teams. So it's more of a question as to what your staff is actually going to use as to which I think would be best for you.
I'm always concerned about reliability and quality. A lot of the times we are not in a location where there is good internet connection, good reception. We have some really important meetings and they're done in locations where we can't always guarantee that we're going to have a very steadfast connection. So,
I mean, if you're just comparing the two major players, Zoom and Teams, they're both massive companies, so they're going to be putting a lot of effort themselves into that area, especially due to the nature of where things have developed over the last 2 years. However, Teams is obviously not built for video conferencing first. It's been a service that's been added onto it, whereas Zoom was built video first. So I would always probably gravitate to the fact that Zoom will be better at video conferencing, whereas Teams is probably going to be better at your entire suite of services for an organization.
Currently we have quite a disjointed workflow where I feel we have like a plethora of applications. We use Slack for internal communications. We're using MailChimp for newsletters. We're using Salesforce for our CRM for managing customers. And I'm concerned now if we commit to a video conferencing platform, we're now going to have another application that all our staff need to use. Is there something we can consider to make the workflow easier so we're not just adding another layer of complexity?
When you purchase Zoom, you've got a lot of other things that kind of come with your subscription. One thing that they are continually working on is Zoom's plan is to kind of be the one application you open on your device, and then you can access other things that you use through that. So your integration to Dropbox, MailChimp, Slack, Salesforce, Pipedrive, all of these apps that you probably are already using have already integrated, and they're continually expanding that. So a good example would be, say, an Apple iPhone. The iPhone came out first, and then Apple allowed the App Store, where third-party developers could create apps, which then made their product more useful and kind of the base infrastructure to expand the suite to make the software more valuable long term.
Interesting, that's quite valuable. Our team, however, are not really tethered to the workplace. They do a lot of traveling. We're on site with the client quite a lot. We're in the car making calls. We're also on a call. We're also in a meeting while we're traveling. A lot of our staff are very mobile. They're not always in one place. Is there anything you can shed some light on, or some sort of hardware that we should keep in mind when we're doing conferencing?
Now my answer might be a little bit biased because this is something that I've actually done. So in our office, we have, say, Zoom phone set up and we have Zoom rooms set up. So say you were going to call one of your team that were out on the road, and they're about 10 minutes away from the office, and you had a video meeting in your office in 10 minutes. So they could jump into the call audio only. As they're driving, they obviously get to the office, they walk into your office, walk into the Zoom room, and without having to disconnect from the call. On their phone, they could just click join Zoom room. Them in the call is automatically going to transfer into the room. They can then use their room controller to click video on and then immediately be chatting face to face.
Oh, so we could have essentially a landline and then transfer to a smartphone and then walk into a dedicated Zoom room and essentially continue that call and then go from audio all the way through to video.
So if your office is quite large, if they're on one of your VoIP phones, which is set up with Zoom Phone, they could then transfer that call to their mobile, walk through the office to the other end to your Zoom room, walk into your Zoom room, transfer the call, and then from their mobile to the Zoom room system, and then change it into video. So at no point have they lost connection with a client or someone else on another one of your offices. It's a continuous conversation.
As a firm, we also do a lot of live streaming. So to internal staff, to potential employees, do a lot of upskilling. And we also do courses which we monetize and people tune in. Is there one of these platforms that also makes that easier? Because we do that quite frequently.
Yeah, definitely. Take Zoom, for example. You could have a webinar license, which will then allow you to have hosts and then certain panelists. And then if any participant joins, the participant actually can't ask questions. They can only view what's happening, whereas the panelists can chat back and forth, which just gives you a bit more security. Whereas in, say, a normal video conference, you've got to tell people to mute their microphones, unmute their microphones, and each sole person has control over the meeting. Whereas in a webinar, you as the owner or the host would have full control over how that works. Let's say you've already got 365, so you're already using chat, you might already be using Teams or OneDrive for your storage. So those types of things wouldn't change, I wouldn't imagine. However, with Zoom, you can have, just say you have the one Zoom room license, just the one, will give you unlimited digital signage displays. So that can all be managed through the Zoom admin portal. You don't have to pay another software provider like, say, Fusion Signage or something like that. The cost adds up when you've got 10, 20 digital signage displays. You can also have unlimited scheduling panels, which also could add up with another provider. So there's a few things there which definitely add value to the Zoom service.
The big question, would you recommend for budget purposes something that's more cost effective than the other? Looking at the two major platforms.
The question's a hard one. It's a more in-depth one, to be honest. I think long term, if the larger your company, you had, say, all these digital signage displays, scheduling panels, etc., you may find Zoom would be more cost effective. But it's definitely a conversation we'd need to really get into the nitty-gritty. How many rooms do you have? How many specific licenses? How many basic licenses? How many pro licenses? How many meetings? There's a lot of things to consider. So
now that you know the whole picture of our business and how we work, what would you recommend if you were personally in my position?
To be honest, probably comes down to the very first question that we went through. I personally think Zoom is probably going to be the better platform that you're going to get return on investment for, and your staff is actually going to utilize, purely because they're so used to it in their personal lives. And if they're not comfortable with something, they're not going to do it. So because they're comfortable with it, they will probably end up using it more, which is going to increase engagement for you. Obviously, the thing to consider is you're going to need to set up meeting rooms with Zoom room hardware. And that ranges from, depending on, say, you've got quite a small room, which you could have a all-in-one soundbar, Polycom, Logitech, something like that. Or if you've got larger spaces, you're going to need more integration, more control, multiple touch panels, ceiling microphones, speakers, etc. And that comes down to specific quotes for specific rooms and systems.
Thank you very much for your time.
No worries, thank you.